this capture. Go to File. I'll go ahead and start a new document. The default letter size is fine. And what I need on here is 3 circles. So I'm going to hold down the Shift key. We're going to create a Venn diagram, incidentally. So I'm holding down the Shift key to create one circle that is the constrained proportion so that it's roughly a perfect circle. I'm going to go ahead and increase the stroke a little bit. 7 looks good, maybe 10. That's fine. I'll go ahead and grab my black arrow tool, and I need 2 more circles just like this one. So what I can do is if I hold down the Alt key and I click and drag, I will create a new instance of it. And I'll drag it somewhere to the bottom left here. And then once again, I need a 3rd circle for my Venn diagram, so I'll hold down the Alt key and click and drag. And the guide should help me out there. Now, if I wanted to create a Venn diagram, you guys start to see the problem. You guys know what Venn diagrams look like, right? They're sort of overlapping. I might, you know what, I'm going to Command A to select all, and then I'm going to hold down the Shift key and make these a little bit bigger. And then maybe move them over here to the right. So we have a clear problem. Like, I can't really have them. I could reduce the opacity maybe. Let's try that. Let's see what happens. So if I set the opacity to maybe 40%, that doesn't really quite get what I want. What I need is the ability to sort of take these paths and almost like use a paint bucket, right? So what we can do is, oh, you know what? My 2 circles right down here, they're not close enough together to one another. So I'm going to shift and I'm going to drag them holding down the Shift key to kind of get them a little bit closer, if that makes sense. And then I'm going to hit Command A and then go to Object, Live Paint, and Make. Object, Live Paint, Make. And at first, it doesn't look like it has really done very much, except that I can kind of see the paths underneath the paths like that. And like most things, there's a tool associated with this. So usually there's some kind of, like, you can remember the perspective grid. When we use the perspective grid, there's a tool specifically for using this perspective grid. Well, just like that one, there is the paint bucket tool, which I forgot where it was for a second. Where is it? Oh, it's under the live. Okay, it's under the shape builder tool. That's right, which is under the transform tool. I'm going to go ahead and click this little triangle to fly out that menu because I'm actually going to need a few of these. And I'll select the Live Paint Bucket tool here. And we see 3 little icons above the Paint Bucket tool. If for any reason you don't see those 3 little options, go to your swatches panel and simply click one of your swatches. Let me see if I can make these swatches bigger right quick. If you just click the little triangle with any of these, so if you click and hold, see this tiny little triangle right here? That'll fly out any of those 3. I just do it because it kind of makes it convenient, but you can just remember that there are tools underneath here. Either way you want to work. If for any reason you don't see 3 little swatches above, that means that you need to go to your swatches panel and simply select a color. And notice what happens as I select colors inside of my swatches panel. It goes left and right. And you can actually hit the left and right arrow keys to create different swatches. Although the swatches up here, they're going to be specific to the folder. Notice that you can create little folders inside of your swatches panel. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to use this folder right down here. I think it should be there by default. If for any reason you don't see the same swatches as I do, I think you can reload the library. Let's see. I forget what the default library is. I think up at the top here there should be a reset option. so. Hopefully you guys haven't been messing. I think the default swatches. Oh, here it is. Default swatches, and then select print. And there are lots of swatch libraries in here. Instantly you can get to there from, remember there's lots of little options down here if you mouse over them. So click the little library icon. You want to select default swatches and then select print. If for any reason you don't see the ones that are already selected. It will kind of come up with one that looks very similar to the swatches panel. And I'm going to stick to these like couple of colors down here. So I'll go ahead and click one because hitting left and right arrow it will only kind of stick to that folder, I think. Let me see. Oh, I have to select the folder. There we go. Yeah. I think, unless they changed something. They might have changed something in CC 2015. They make these little changes sometimes. Just bugs the heck out of me. It's not doing it. Okay, there it is. Now it's, so it's kind of going to my... Oh, if I hit up and down... Oh, I didn't know that. If you hit up and down, it goes to a different folder. Okay, that's kind of new. But anyway, I'm just going to kind of select these anyway. And we kind of want to click and drag, and it becomes fairly obvious what these colors, what it's going to do, right? As I kind of mouse over here and I click red, it's going to fill that area in as though I sort of dropped it in with Paint Bucket. But notice what it did is it used the paths around it to determine what area should be filled, which is much different than adding a fill to the object. Remember, if I added a fill to this circle before I created a live paint object, it would have filled the whole thing in and then been obscured by that other part. I'll go ahead and select, oops. Of course, I need to deselect the object before I select. You can always deselect by just kind of clicking off to the side with the black or white arrow tool. And I accidentally had everything selected, so I was setting a fill for all those objects, which was really screwing with it. Let's go ahead and add a second color. So I've got that yellow selected, and I'll go ahead and drop it into that first one, into this top one. Let's see. Yeah, that makes sense. And of course our strokes are kind of an issue, but we're going to fix that in a second. So try not to worry too much about that. And then I will grab a blue color and fill in this other circle. And then I kind of need to select intermediary colors. So I don't know, what does blue and yellow make? Let's just say purple. That's not right, but let's just say purple. Just because it's easy to select. I think yellow and red, that should make orange, right? And then blue and reds, let's just say it makes green. Why not? And then the middle one, I'm going to leave white color. And you'll notice that my Venn diagram isn't quite even, right? So what I can do is I can grab my black arrow tool. This is one of the most amazing things ever. Is if I double click it, now they're going to be grouped together, right? So it's going to follow how groups work. So I need to double click and then I sort of enter that group. Watch what happens when I drag this circle around. I love this so much. It's still interpreting the live paint groups as though I had moved these before and then dropped them in, right? You see how I kind of move these around and it's still figuring out how the live paint works? This is so brilliant. So I could kind of shift click both of these and maybe align to bottom, right? Vertical align bottom. Oops, you know what? I had it set to, I'll undo that. I need to align to selection. So align to selection here and then maybe align bottom. Maybe I need to shift click and drag these over. Hopefully my guides will help me. Yes, they did. Let me drag these down. Let's see. It kind of gets me pretty close. That's looking pretty good. Hopefully your smart guides will help you out. Of course, one odd thing happened. That's really weird. Why is there like a slice taken out of that? That should not have happened. Huh. I'll hit escape to get out of that mode, to kind of commit that change. So you can move this stuff around inside of here. Now we also have the problem of these strokes not making any sense. So what I need to do is grab this live paint selection tool. Or excuse me, No, I need the, sorry, I need the live paint bucket tool selected. And it's, I wish there was, oops, I'll hit Command 0, I kind of moved around there. I wish this was easier to get to, or at least there was like another option for it, but there's not. If I hold down the Shift key, notice that my cursor changes. Let me zoom in here. Notice that my cursor changes. You need to see this paintbrush tool, or you're not going to be able to change strokes. And what do I really want to do? I want to make it so the stroke goes away, right? So I probably want to, let's see, if I hit left arrow a few times, I can find that, you know, box with a slash in it, and that means no stroke. So if I hold down the Shift key and I mouse over, and you can see that that line kind of becomes highlighted. Let me zoom in. Oops, not like that. That line kind of becomes highlighted, and I click it, and boom, no stroke. No stroke. Come on, let me do it. Where are you? That's weird. Oh, there it is. And then, you know, just kind of click through there until you don't see a stroke anymore. All right. So where our Venn diagram is that doesn't quite make sense in terms of color is coming together, right? I guess I should have just done red, green, and blue. That would have made more sense. Oh well. Is everybody caught up with me? Is everybody...
If I had to merge it, how would I go about like unmerging them all?
If you had to merge it.
Yeah, in order to go to the top one, I just said I had to merge them.
Did you create a live paint group first? Let me pause it. Okay, so we have another issue kind of going on here. If we look here, that my corners kind of aren't acting the way that they should. So what I need to do is grab this live paint selection tool. And what the live paint selection tool does is it lets you kind of select areas and then change them. So I could, you know, fix my green. I could maybe make this a green color instead of the color that it was. And let's see, red, green, blue, and then maybe I can select this one down here and maybe make it a color that makes more sense. I don't know, yellow? I think it's supposed to be yellow. Purple, right? Yeah. Let's see, green and blue make yellow. Wait, what does green and blue make? Green and blue. I think you're right. I think green and blue don't make anything. It's been so long since I thought about that stuff. But we also kind of have this issue where the line, and notice that I can select the line with this tool. So if I mouse over it, careful not to select the overall object. You can see the whole object getting highlighted versus just the line. It's kind of like a narrow space. Let me zoom in on that so you guys can see it. See how I can kind of select the line or the whole thing? If I select just the line, I can now kind of, and I think I can do this, select stroke, and I can change the cap points. Corner points aren't going to do anything because these aren't actually corners. These are sort of like the ends of the path. So if I change the cap to rounded, do you see how it rounded off that cap? And I could do so with all of the lines actually. I can even, let's see, I can shift click and select all of these outer strokes. Careful not to select any of the things. You can always shift click. If you accidentally click like area in here, you could always shift click again to deselect it. And I will change the stroke to a rounded cap on all of them. And I feel like the stroke is a little bit too thick, so maybe I'll bump it down a little bit. Maybe just a little bit of stroke. And there we have it. Now there are some quirks to this tool because once an object is in this mode, it tends to stay in this mode. I can't really I guess I could, let's see, what happens if I double click and start to add paths to it. It's not really going to behave like it should, like it would, like a normal object would. You can always go in and if you go to object, if you don't like what you want, you can select release. And that will completely undo everything that you just did. I'll hit undo to do that. So you tend to not want to do release unless you accidentally created a live paint object somehow. You want to expand appearance. Of course, that takes it out of live paint. It's still grouped together, but notice that things are kind of now like separate elements. it sort of has created, it has expanded the appearance. Much like when we expanded the appearance with the stroke, it sort of created two paths. It sort of created that stroke and then filled in that object. That's what happens when you create live paint. So that kind of tends to lend it towards a final step. So don't try to, like, if you are creating, you know, I don't know, if you're recreating my t-shirt or something, you would want to create the t-shirt first and create all the individual parts that you think should be there and then convert it to live paint. Don't try to, like, you know, do half of it and then like live paint half of it and then try to finish the other half. It's not going to work out very well. Because once I expand it, I mean, you can work that way, but once you expand it, you know, it's going to create separate objects. And, you know, I could keep adding stuff to this and, like, convert it to another live paint object, stuff like that. And again, it's actually where your appearance panel comes in a lot of handy. Notice that, and I simply undid that expand, by the way. My appearance panel is telling me that this object is in live paint mode. Right? It is currently in live paint mode. Notice that there aren't any strokes or fills. Everything I need to do exists behind as either this live paint bucket or live paint selection tool. Remember, you do need to hold down the shift key in order to change strokes to different things. So maybe I could change, I don't know. And I'm just hitting the left and right arrow keys once again to change, I don't know, let's say I want, I don't know, purple for my stroke. Click there. Let me make it a little bit thicker so everybody can see it. Oops, how do I make it thicker? I've got to grab this live paint selection tool, click it, and then I can make it thicker. There we go. Of course, somewhere along the way I redid something, so I want to change those cap points again. There we go. All right, that's that.